Hi guys, so here's my last video for today. I wanted to share this because I've discovered that my diagnosis, the way I received it was kind of unusual because there was no formal assessment. I don't know how common that is, but it seems like it's unusual, so I wanted to share my story. And if you got diagnosed by a medical professional, as long as it was a medical professional, it's a legitimate diagnosis. So here's what happened with me. In 2019, I was attending or maybe it was earlier than that. The older I get, the harder it is to remember things or when things occurred because there's so many things now. But I believe this was 2019. I was attending a social group for people with Asperger's, high functioning autism, whatever you want to call it. And one of the guys in the group was an older gentleman who was in his 60s who had just been diagnosed. And he was sharing his story of his wife and his daughter expressing concerns. And he went for an assessment and got a diagnosis. And then another guy starts sharing some story about his assessment, and I'm sitting there totally confused. And what assessment? I never had an assessment. So I said, I never had an assessment. What's this assessment? And the lady running the group said that's not a proper diagnosis. You need to go back and get an assessment. That's not happening. This is $2,000 or $3,000. If I could find a way to have it covered by the government, I would do it. I'm very curious. But as of right now, it's not happening. And if I was a child, maybe, or if I was younger and still in school, as an adult out of school, it won't make a difference. And I'm so confident that this is my diagnosis anyway. It came from a medical professional, so I don't doubt it. I have no reason to spend all that money and dig into my savings account and. So here was my diagnosis journey as a child, though. Just I want to lay this out. I went onto a Facebook group. This is one I joined recently that does not support the neurodiversity movement. And I just wanted other people's opinions about how this is possible. That I got a diagnosis without an assessment. And two things came up over and over. That either they assessed me at school and I didn't know it, or my mom was telling the psychiatrist things. My mom brought it to the psychiatrist. And I can tell you, neither of those things happened. So I have picked my mom's brain. She doesn't remember, we're talking 20 plus years ago, some of these details, but it doesn't change the fact that there was no assessment. I was diagnosed with ADHD in 1995 when I was 6 years old. There was an assessment then. I am assuming the school set it up. I don't really know, but it wasn't done in school, and I kind of vaguely remember it. When I was 10 years old, I was put on Ritalin. When I was 10 years old, I started seeing a pediatric psychiatrist. These are the details my mom can't remember. Did the school set up? Did they ask her to ask my family doctor to refer me? She doesn't remember, but either way, I started seeing a psychiatrist when I was 10. She did not observe me in school. If the school was involved, maybe they provided observations. I'm unsure of that. And she definitely talked to my mom with me out of the room. She observed me in the room. So she was definitely gathering information. And I saw her for 2 years before I was diagnosed. So she didn't just yell it out the minute she saw me. She did gather information. So I started seeing her when I was 10. Um, my behavior was getting really out of control at school, really disruptive. And I was getting suspended a lot. And so, like I said, I don't know if the school set it up or asked my mom to do it, but either way, I started seeing her, and the assumption was that I had ADHD, and she was trying different medications. She also diagnosed me with anxiety and depression and put me on an antidepressant, so I'm extremely glad she did. I'm actually still on it today. Um, and 2 years later, after she'd been seeing me for 2 years, is when I got my Asperger's diagnosis. I was in the room when it happened, and I've asked my mom, and this part she does remember well. The psychiatrist pulled out a piece of paper and wrote on it autism spectrum, and under that she wrote Asperger's, PDD-NOS, classic autism, and she pointed to Asperger's and told me that was what I had. I actually remember being stunned, especially with the autism connection. My oldest brother, is also on the spectrum. he received a PDD-NOS diagnosis years before me. So this is what my mom and I knew of autism. He walks on his toes, flaps his hands, more obvious features. And as a child, he was much more disabled than I ever have been. He's progressed amazing. Autism is weird like that. Sometimes people do become a lot less disabled, but as a child, he was very different from me. And this is what my mom knew of autism. This is what I knew of autism. So the idea that she brought it to the psychiatrist, that did not happen. She had never heard of Asperger's. Um, maybe she did tell her some things she was seeing at home, but the majority of the problems were at school, and the school was neglectful. They were not telling her the extent of what was going on. I have told her some serious things that she didn't know about until years later when I told her. And in terms of me having an assessment at school, because that was the second thing. So my mom definitely did not bring it to her. The second thing that people were suggesting was that I received an assessment at school. I was neglected at school. Anytime I misbehaved, they didn't see it as a problem or a cry for help. They saw me as being a brat or spoiled. I would get suspended. My teacher in grade 5 would shove my desk in a supply closet and have me sitting there to work. My teacher in grade 6, she would send me to the hallway for misbehaving, and then I would wander into the library, which is right across from the classroom. No one ever came to look for me. The librarian never asked, what I was doing there. I was neglected. I would tell them how I felt. I would not get taken seriously. Nothing was being communicated to my mom. One time they did communicate something and they got it wrong. They told her I knocked over a bookshelf. What actually happened was another kid threw my stuff back there, and the shelf fell over when I was trying to get it. And the story that my mom got was that I knocked over a bookshelf. So she was getting very incomplete information. My behavior was very different at home. She didn't know anything was going on like this at school. And the behavior she was aware of, she thought was attributable to ADHD. She did not think anything else was going on developmentally more severe than ADHD. She definitely hadn't heard of Asperger's. And like I said, the school was very neglectful. I got very little one-on-one attention. They did set me up with a CYW when I was in grade 5, a child and youth worker. And I would sit and talk to her, which I loved. I loved the one-on-one attention. I loved getting out of the classroom. But it was sitting and talking. There was no assessment that could have been disguised as a game, nothing like that. It was just questions. Again, it's possible that she provided observations to the psychiatrist. I don't know. But there was no formal assessment. I was diagnosed without a formal assessment, and that is okay. It seems to be unusual, but it's okay. It came from a medical professional. The issue is people self-diagnosing. So if someone questions your diagnosis, I want you to know that even if it was a weird journey, as long as it came from a medical professional, it's fine. There is a big issue online in the neurodiversity movement of people who are self-diagnosed. There's a lack of resources. It is hard to get an assessment. I'm aware of that. But if you don't have a diagnosis from a medical professional, just say you suspect you have it, not that you have it. And that's the language I would be using if I didn't have this diagnosis. So I hope that was clear and helpful. And I will try and be back at the end of the month with a couple more things. And I'll continue posting at the end of every month. That's my plan. I have a list still of 2 or 3 dozen ideas. So I will definitely be back as soon as I can. Unless my health goes stupid again. Thanks for watching.